I don't think real estate is the best place for somebody to start. Even if you win the game and you get rich, it still will humble you.
Social media, I think it's trust at a mass scale.
Twitter is an amazing thing because people get a look into your mind. You're selling 24/7.
Sales is hard. You get thick skin and you got to get through it.
I'd have 8 or 10 self-storage facilities and that's about it. But instead I have 60 plus. I love real estate. It's in my blood. Real estate is the same thing as entrepreneurship. If you don't like sales, you need to go get a job right now because life is sales.
Welcome to the show. My name is Taylor Avakian. This is the No Vacancy podcast, and I'm here with my esteemed guest, Nick Huber. Nick, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited. I talk a lot of small business, but I love real estate. It's in my blood. So
we're gonna dig into it for sure. And speaking of real estate, but more on the mindset stuff. So Nick, in 2013, you were chalk tagging student storage at 6 a.m. with your jeans wearing out holes in your knees. Today, you can wire $52 million in 41 days, which is just crazy. What single mindset shift bridged those two worlds?
it has been a heck of a journey. To be clear for the folks listening, I only wired 20 million and none of it was my money. But I did.
Even more impressive. I mean,
No, yeah, it took
21 million of other people's money.
Yeah, it was 20 million to buy 58% of the business. So yeah, man, it's a wild ride. I think your success in life is directly correlated to how much stress you can handle. And I'm building the muscle of handling stress. 15 years in it, man. And I think it's another thing is a testament to momentum. Like 10 years into my journey in 2020, I was just getting started and just getting rolling, and it's been exponential since then. So
Did you envision the path, the way that you built the business through social media and stuff? Like, was that something that you had premeditated?
no. And I think if you go about social media wanting that or trying to make that happen and trying to force it almost, it gets harder. I love writing. I love teaching. I love sharing openly what I'm doing. And I also have an ego. So I wanted the following and the likes and things like that. So it was a perfect storm, but yeah, it accelerated my career in a major way because without it, I'd have 8 or 10 self-storage facilities and that's about it. But instead I have 60 plus. We've raised almost 50 million bucks to buy storage. We have 2 million square feet and two other businesses that I own already, Cost Seg and somewhere.com are both growing very fast. So I'm blessed, man.
Shoot, man. It is, it's pretty crazy the power of what attention and media and relationships. Cause really, I think what, social media is going towards, they're saying it's not social. It's just like media now, but I think it's trust at a max scale.
Mm-hmm.
It's building relationships and everything we do is human to human. From the storage business, which, closing deals, like you have to build rapport with those owners for them to select you and want to get a deal done. So I think being able to be candid, which you clearly are very good at, but you also, and we'll get into this later, is like the strategy behind it. I can tell you think very strategically about crafting narratives and messages. Mm-hmm. And that is a skill in itself because I struggle with that in terms of the way that I craft what I want people to see me as in terms of a broker, right? Because there's the broker Taylor and there's Taylor outside of the office, and they mesh very closely together because they spend so much time doing the business. But it's also, okay, what is my goal here? My goal is to get more sales and listings. So what's the narrative that we're crafting behind that to actually make that achievable? Yep. Can you paint the scene for me? That first storage development that you did, right? You had to convince the first investor to wire you the money. Mm-hmm. What did you say? Or more importantly, what did they need to hear?
Oh man, you covered so much there in the intro. I think first of all, like Twitter is an amazing thing because people get to look into your mind at scale instead of talking to one person on the phone or several people in a group chat or a room full of people. You get to talk to hundreds of thousands of people and they get to look into your mind. So that's a blessing and a curse, but it did allow me to build that trust. But the first deal, I didn't have any of that. I didn't have a network. I didn't have any. I grew up middle-class family in a very rural area of Southern Indiana. I did not grow up at a country club. I did not, and it turned out all these meetings that I was taking, which was basically all my college friends' parents and my dad's friends, most of them didn't actually have money, and I didn't know it. So I was going around trying to raise money from people who had no idea what real estate private equity was. And so it took me 100 plus meetings to raise money for that first deal. My dad put in 125 grand, got 3 of his buddies to do it. I got one of my friend's parents to do it, and then the broker who sold me the land to build the building on was the last check in. So I was doing anything and everything I could to fill that deal. Took 100 plus meetings. But yeah, a huge part of what I believe is that life is sales. And if you don't like sales, you need to go get a job. Whether you're interested in entrepreneurship or real estate, which real estate is the same thing as entrepreneurship. If you don't like sales, you need to go get a job because you're selling 24/7. You're selling your employees on trusting you. You're selling your investors on investing with you, bankers on lending to you, vendors on selling to you, customers on buying from you. So if you don't like sales, go get a job.
Did you have the gift of gab, or did you study sales? How did you improve those skills? Was it just repetitions and you iterated? Like, cause sales is fucking hard, man. Sales is hard.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 8 years now. And like, there's still days where I get hung up on it and I'm like, fuck that person so much. Like, I hate you. But you get thick skin and you got to get through it. So how did you learn sales?
Sales is just like hiring. It's just like delegation. It's just like decision making, and that nobody's born with it. Nobody's born with the ability to do it. The only way you do it is by practicing it and getting better at it. It's a muscle. If you're not willing to go to the gym and lift the weights, you're not going to improve it. So everybody wants to be Arnold Schwarzenegger and build muscle, but then they just eat protein, make the workout plan, watch videos, study, learn, and really the only way to build muscle is go to the gym. So I'll put that out there first.
Yeah.
But I had a meeting in Ithaca, New York with a mentor of mine right when I started my first company. I was an entrepreneur now. I'm going to go meet with this guy named Dan Cohen. Had sold a foundation repair business, an original sweaty startup for almost $10 million. And he was the entrepreneur in residence at Cornell. So lightning in a bottle is what I caught. And I got lunch with him. We sit down at lunch, and the very first thing he says to me is, he's like, "Nick, do you like sales?" And I knew what I needed to say because of the way he said it. He's like, "Consider yourself a good salesman." But I was honest and I said, "No, I don't like sales. I'm more of the visionary. I'm the operator. I'm the guy on the whiteboard. I'm the one making the decisions. I'm the leader." And he kind of rolled his eyes and he said, "Nick, if you don't like sales, you need to go get a job right now." Because life is sales. And he went on to tell me about all those things that, hey, look, when you're in those early days, no employee is going to trust you with their career. Nobody's going to lease you that warehouse when you're 25 and you don't have any money. I was trying to lease 30,000 square foot warehouses in Boston. So she's like, you better get good at sales or go get a job. But the good news is that you can get good at sales. And a huge part of this book is about sales, because I think it's the number one skill in life. I'm selling my 5-year-old on getting in the car. I'm selling my wife on staying with me every day. It's like, nobody does anything they don't want to do.
That's an experienced, weathered man. Someone who's been in sales for that long. I mean, I can only imagine the stories and the negotiations, those tables.
Yep.
I would love to be a fly on the wall on some of those like high level negotiations, because it's just so fascinating to me. And I know we're both history buffs, so it's like looking into a piece of time when it was so vital or a big decision was made is kind of like something that gets me all warm and fuzzy when I think about it.
Yeah.
Your views on real estate, right? Have they changed in terms of primary wealth engine versus like a storage of value?
I don't think real estate is the best place for somebody to start real estate GP, like being a principal, buying assets, because it's the most capital intensive business in the world. And it's not the easiest, fastest way to make money. Operating businesses are. So luckily I came from a business that was creating money and allowed me to put that money into my first deal. But that first deal is what generated 80% of my wealth. So I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth there. But I love I love the path of brokerage. I love the path of property management. I love the path of, closing related services. I love everything around real estate and especially construction. Actually, I've already founded a construction services business. We're doing a multifamily design build in LA actually.
There we go.
Um,
No
yeah,
shit.
it's called Bolt Builders, and we have a team of architects and engineers in Colombia, along with a United States-based architect to stamp plans. So it's a it's a design build firm that is basically an architect without 100 plus grand a month to get permit drawings and
Wow.
MEP and all that. But so yeah, I love all those niche services that lend themselves later to owning assets because all those skills, whether
Mm.
it's development, brokerage, any of it, lends itself to spotting deals and to spotting alpha and being able to get in the business of real estate. So, but is it the best primary wealth driver? Not in my opinion.
So speaking of spotting alpha, because that is, I would say, especially in real estate, as an antiquated business, it's still so old boy,
Mhm,
old money. Mostly old white dudes is the
mhm.
stereotype, and it's a lot of old white dudes. How do you spot alpha? Like, what do you look for?
Well, the we can talk storage, but storage got really, really hard because and why it got very, very hard is because you can give me an address right now, Taylor, of a self-storage facility. Only an address. And I can give you a ballpark number of what that property's worth in about 40 seconds.
Hmm.
Anywhere in the world. Not in the world, in the USA. There's 50 to 60,000 self-storage facilities. You drop me a pin and let me look at it on Google Street View and let me look at it from above and measure some things, and I can tell you about what it's worth with no other information. That makes our business very hard. That's
Hmm.
why things like multifamily, it matters what the inside of the building looks like. In storage, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
so it makes it very hard when we are competing. We're competing with no geographical moat because there's a deal that's for sale. You have to either cold call them at the right time or have the right relationship with a broker or have the right relationship with an owner. But anybody in America could buy that deal because remote management now of self-storage is a big thing. So
Does that change your future outlook on what kind of assets you would want to invest in? Because there is that the alpha is harder to come by, and multifamily inherently has more moving parts with tenants.
mhm.
But again, there's the headache involved with it too.
Love headache. I love the
Does,
harder operationally it is to run a building, the better it is.
do you want to buy some rent controlled Los Angeles multifamily properties? Because that is the biggest headache that I think anyone could deal
Well,
with.
there's so much demand for that product and so much capital chasing it that I have no interest in playing those games. I'm not rich enough. But
I don't know about
I
that.
bought 2
I can
industrial
get you a deal.
build well, there's people buying multifamily in LA that require 0 return, and I'm
Yeah.
not that rich. I'll never be that rich.
Yeah.
So I love industrial, but it's also very, very, very hard to underwrite outside of your core market. We bought 2 deals in Athens, Georgia, and that's it. Um, so so yeah, we'll see. But no, I think the storage market's gonna come back around. People are getting washed out. Like
Yeah.
we still have a ton of moving parts. We have a lot of maintenance. We have a lot of tenants. You got to be able to out operate. So I'm bullish long term, but the last 2 years in real estate in general has been brutal.
Yeah, for sure. Interest rates. I mean, I think it's going to be worse for longer, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah.
We have a lot of conversations with owners of, okay, is there going to be that 2008, 2009? I don't think so. I do think there's going to be pain for longer, and I think you'll be able to pick up good deals, but it's going to come from the relationships. It's going to come from, do you know the banks that are getting rid of these properties? Do you know the broker who is dealing directly with a probate sale? Do you know, it's all relationship based. Um, when did you realize that leverage, not ideas, was your ticket to freedom? Like, and what maybe specific memory anchors you to that belief?
If there is a single human being that could make one decision and negatively impact your life, you don't have leverage.
Mm,
For 95% of people, that's a boss. And if the boss decides that you're not adding value to the company anymore, then you are now unable to feed your family and pay your rent. So in entrepreneurship, it could be a big customer, could be a business partner, could be an investor, could be other people But if they decide something different, your whole world is turned upside down. Leverage is about minimizing the power of those other people so that eventually, if you actually have ultimate leverage, is that there's not a single one person. There's not a single one person in the world who can make a decision on a whim that stops your ability to cover your bills, build wealth, and feed your family. That's what leverage is.
Mm. And it sounds like for you, you're constantly looking for ways to position yourself to have the most leverage possible to make that a reality in all your businesses. And I'm actually curious to know the structure. How do you structure your business opportunities? Because you have dozens of companies that you're part of. Like what does that structure look like so that you're in a good leveraged position?
Well, I'm in any one business. Of course, I have partners that could have a negative impact on that business. Of course, but I have enough sources of income. I have enough businesses where it wouldn't stop my ability to feed my family and pay my bills
Do
and
you,
do well.
so again, history buff here. I'm a big fan of this podcast called
Yeah.
Founders. And one of the overarching themes of David's podcast is that focus is like the best entrepreneurs of history did one thing and they did it for a very long time.
Mhm.
You have seemed to take a contrarian view on that. You're doing a lot of things, you know, all at
Yeah.
once. Do you agree with that? Do you disagree? Or do you feel like there's some truth to that? What is your thought on
The
focus?
beautiful thing about business and the hard part about writing my book was that there's 5 ways to win, or 10 ways to win, or 1,000 ways to win. And there's an incredible amount of nuance to every single part of business. Not just how many businesses to start, but how to hire, how to manage, how to delegate, how to sell, how to make decisions. All this stuff is incredibly nuanced and incredibly difficult.
Mhm.
Yeah, 9 out of 10 wealthy people that I know have one business. So I'm an odds player, man. I'm an odds player.
Yeah.
So I love those odds, and I would honestly, I would probably recommend that folks start one business. But I found myself in a situation in 2015 where we realized that, hey, this market's only so big. I was moving college kids' boxes at a company called Storage Squad. Our market was only so big. It was never going to be a $10 million revenue business, and it was always going to be high risk. It was always going to be very stressful during the busy seasons, and it could not take us to where we wanted to go. So that's when we took the opportunity to build a self-storage facility. I'm very, very thankful that I got distracted and built that self-storage facility because, again, a couple of years later, it was 80% of my wealth and 20% of my headache,
Mhm.
and now it's my main business. Also very thankful I got involved in RE Cost Seg back in 2022. Very thankful I got involved in Somewhere.com in 2021. So, and there's a power law. I have 11 companies. We've shut 3 of them down already. 6 of them have a lot of potential, and 3 of them are going to be very big. So,
Mhm.
how do you know what's opportunity is going to be the one to go after? So I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth, but I'll also go back and say that running a holding company is the sexy thing, and it's the in thing right now online. And everybody wants to be a holding company owner, a holding company operator. I have a lot of entrepreneurs reach out to me, and their business has never had $100,000 month of revenue, and they're already talking about holding companies and doing something else. And my advice to them, as you could guess, is pretty clear that you have no
Yeah.
business doing that shit. Um, business is really freaking hard, as you and I both know.
Yeah.
Even if you win, even if you win the game and you get rich doing business, it still will humble you. So, this is a controversial thing to say, but 70% of people in the world are totally incompetent. They can't make decisions in their own life to stay fit, to stay in good relationships, to have mental health. Um, so like, just the fact that 70% of people are totally incompetent makes them disqualified to run a business. But then the rest,
Mhm.
your ability to run multiple companies before you've been forged as an operator and you have the capital, you have the network, you have the ability is pretty foolish in my opinion.
What business makes the most money that you have?
My highest net worth is probably Bolt Storage. Um,
Okay.
and then somewhere.com is growing really fast. And RE Cost Seg, I think, has a ton of potential to get really, really big. And also Bolt
If what
Builders, I'm pretty excited about because that's just such a huge pain point for developers and real estate people.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to talk about that after the pod because I might have some clientele for you. If you had to pick one business, like they're like, "Hey, Nick, sorry, dude, all these other businesses have to go. You only have one business that you have to focus on and spend all your time doing." Which one would it be, or what business would you want to go into?
Oh man, we're doing exciting shit at RE Cossack, or I mean at Bolt Storage. So like when you increase revenue 15% year over year on a portfolio that's $100 million, and your NOI goes up like 23%,
So sweet, huh?
that that added more money in 1 year to my net worth than I could ever dream about making in
Yeah.
cash. So it would be really hard for me to not to say, like, I'm in the weeds with my team at Bolt Storage rebuilding our sales team from the Philippines and South Africa. When we did that, our close rate, the phone rings, our close rate went from 28% to 41%. When we rebuilt, and
Wow.
we also hired a head of sales in South Africa to help us with promos and train these people. So a lot of things happened at once, but
Mhm.
we're paying $150 for the phone to ring. And when you can go from closing 28% to closing 31% of new phone calls, that adds massive, massive value to us and our investors. Massive. But I wouldn't have been able
What
to do that
changed?
without Somewhere.com recruiting those South African
Yeah.
salespeople. And then I have the tax advantages of all this. And I stroked a 900K check to Uncle Sam in April, but that would have been 1.5 million without RE Cossack.
Mhm.
So I'm learning things at Somewhere and applying them to Bolt Storage and applying them to RE Costseg and vice versa. So those three businesses, like the operators inside these companies, know each other. They are in Slack groups together. They're talking about best practices. My revenue ops guy at Somewhere is helping us rebuild our workflows at RE Costseg. So it's impossible now for me to say that these aren't almost all the same company.
Do you know what was implemented to increase that conversion percentage?
Yeah. So when a client in the United States hears a Filipino accent, they immediately know they're talking to somebody on the other side of the world,
Mhm.
and the tone changes. We still have a lot of Filipinos across our portfolio. I will always hire these folks, unbelievable people.
Mhm. I have some on my team too.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
But the tone of the conversation changed with my rural America clientele when they're talking to somebody in the Philippines. More disrespect, less patience. And when they get on the phone with somebody in South Africa who has this British accent or an Afrikaans accent, which is Eastern Europe,
Mhm.
um, they are asking them if they live in Australia, for example. It's totally different. They're like, "Oh, do you live in the States and you just happen to be a Brit? Like, tell me about you." And my
Yeah.
folks can relate. And also, there's just a massive sales culture of not just taking orders and doing what you're told, but you know, pushing the conversation forward and doing what you need to do from a sales perspective. So we've rebuilt our sales team at Somewhere.com in South Africa. We've rebuilt our sales team at Bolt Storage and at RE Cossack, all in South Africa. And that's the most important decision I've made as a leader of these companies over the past year.
How do you know what? Because typically, so I'm a big Warren Buffett guy, and he makes like one good decision a year, right? And it adds a significant amount of value to his net worth. Maybe a few good decisions,
Yep.
but it's not very many. How do you know what one decision, or do you know what one decision is gonna turn 20% to 40% or
Mhm.
really shift the business in the right direction? Like, do you think about this? Do you go on a walks? How do you determine what the best business move is to make? Because there's so many
Yeah.
moving parts. There's so many open loops. Like, how do you think about that decision-making
I've
process?
gotten better as an operator of companies, looking at my business unemotionally and thinking about the funnel from search engine optimization to paid marketing to organic traffic to referrals to how people find out about my companies and how to maximize the chances that they become my customer. I've gotten super, super in the weeds about what revenue operations is, what follow up sequences are, what tools you can use to automatically text and leave voicemails and send emails to all of your potential leads to increase those funnels. But I look at every branch of my business that way. At Somewhere.com, we get 30,000 applicants a month from all over the world of people who want to work with Somewhere. So I had the decision as, one of the folks who control that business. How do how do we make sense of this? How do we figure out who's the best? Well, let's implement a typing test. And if we give everybody a typing test, it's not only directly correlated with their competence working remotely, but it'll weed out 90% of the people that apply. So
Mm.
it made things open up, and it made our pipeline get way better, and it made Somewhere service to our clients get way, way better. So it's just little things like that that I can look at each branch of the business and figure out, hey, what's the lowest hanging fruit here? Of course, we have a ton of work to do. I look at any of my businesses and I'm like, shit, this is a mess. We got a ton of work to do. But how can I look at each branch of the business and figure out where the lowest hanging fruit is, and then the whole team sprints to improve that until it's no longer the lowest hanging piece of fruit.
What does your tech stack currently look like?
Yeah,
If you can share.
we are hiring through Somewhere massively at all my companies. That's the main competitive advantage that my companies have, is that I can run a real estate private equity firm with cold outreach, with HubSpot, with ZoomInfo, with CoStar data, with all the things I need, but I have 1.3 million a year of overhead on people with almost 60 employees. Whereas my competitors who are running a similar size PE shop, or you translate this to brokerage, whatever, they're spending $5-6 million on people alone a year.
Mhm.
So I can grow faster, I can hire faster, I can take chances, I can experiment with things, all because I can hire internationally. And it's just like they're working right next to me because of the technology, which is Slack. We use Slack all the freaking time. We use Fathom to record all of our meetings. Um, we use Open Phone and Ring Over for phones. We use HubSpot. Um, yeah, Zoom Info for data
What is
enrichment.
there any So, this leads into my next hypothetical question, which selfishly I'm going to ask you this because I'm going to use this as a consulting uh,
Uh,
period for myself. So, if you woke up tomorrow, right, and you're an apartment broker in Los Angeles, how would you become the number one name in town and have the most market share for apartment sales across the city?
do your brokers have a cold caller that works right hand with them in South Africa for $1,600 a month?
Are you asking me,
Yeah,
or
that
is that
that seems like a way to double the productivity while the same person who they're setting appointments for still gets to manage those relationships, because you can't get away from the relationship. You can't outsource your business. You need 20 Americans on your team if you're going to grow at scale. But
Mhm.
my thought as a business owner is how can I increase the impact of these brokers so that they can do more? And I would think a high ticket salesperson in South Africa with perfect English, working side by side, each of them as kind of like their virtual partner, would potentially do that.
So what you do, so let me see if I understand. So what you would do is you would have an outbound sales team in South Africa who is basically generating the leads to then funnel to the brokers to then close the deals.
Yeah, and I'd have a very good design shop doing the OMs, the property offering memorandums,
Mm,
in Latin America. So I'd probably go to Brazil for my design. I would go to South
okay.
Africa for a head of finance and operations to help with the underwriting because it's a finance hub as well. I would hire probably an analyst in Cairo to help me with all the numbers because it's $700 a month for somebody who can work magic in Excel. There's no reason to hire an American analyst anymore. Um,
Hmm.
then I would hire a head of finance, kind of somebody who can write really good English. It's kind of like the equivalent of investor relations for me, but it's broker. It's client relations to write the memos in South Africa. Again, maybe 3 grand a month for that person. 2 or 3 designers in Brazil for $1,200 a month, and then I would pair all my brokers with an outbound sales team that's setting appointments. And as soon as they get a hot lead, it gets assigned. It gets assigned to one of your producers. And then I'd
I
hire a
think
head
the
of sales
brokers.
to manage them and coach them and performance manage them. Because as you know, like without and then you have revenue operations where you really need somebody in the background working logistics so that these people can call all day and not have to sort through leads because your best callers, you want them on the phone. So the revenue operations side of things is massive, but that's how I would structure my company.
Do you think the brokerage business model is a good business model?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, you don't
Really?
pay people unless they produce. It's one of the few businesses.
Yeah.
It's one of the few businesses where if your entire workforce stops producing, you don't have to keep paying them.
As the owner, correct. As the broker, it's a very interesting because I think about that a lot because I think about leverage. And one of the things I look up to is people who create systems and businesses that don't require time for money. Because really, brokerage as a broker is time for money.
Mhm.
If you're not communicating with people, right, you're not making money
Yep.
unless you have people who are working underneath you.
Yep.
And you basically become the broker owner at that point. And so what you're saying is brokerage is a good business model if you become a broker owner, but as a single broker, maybe
It's
not
still
the
a
highest
still a
leverage.
great business model. It's an entrepreneurial. It's an entrepreneur. If you're a great salesperson and you're going to outwork everybody, you're going to earn a massive amount of money. So
Mhm.
I love those businesses. Are you kidding me? It's a high leverage career. It's a high leverage career, and you can also build a team and build relationships so that you get paid more with less work over time as a good broker. So if I were the
Yeah.
owner of the firm and thinking about scaling my business, I would find the best brokers with the best relationships in LA, and I would go out and try to sell them and try to build a system that was going to be better than the shop they're working for currently. And if I can say, "Hey, you're going to come to me, not only are we the most tech savvy business in LA, but we have this lead generation model on the back end that you kind of adopt, and I can find a way to make the economics work a little bit better for you so that you can make more money working for me." And then as the owner, I would just spend almost all my time tracking down these high producers and trying to sell them on my vision in my company.
Mm, very interesting. How are you thinking about AI?
I think it's an amazing tool, like content creation, SEO. It's going to change a lot of things. Also, producing OMs, um, you know, anything text related. I think it's amazing. Performance management, I think, is really good. You can have an AI bot in the email inbox of every single one of your people. You can measure response times. You can see when customers are unhappy. You can parachute in and save deals. We're using that across a lot of our companies. But the AI agents, spoken AI agents, I think are a total absolute joke. It's laughable. And the people trying to sell it and talk about it are losing all of my respect.
What I think yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. I think agentic AI is going to be the future. It's something that I think about just because of the business that I'm in terms of I'm a conduit, right? I'm the middle person between a deal getting done. Like if I was a storage broker and I was able to find a deal, I have to then communicate that deal to you for Bolt to buy. And so if you can do that at scale or prospect at scale or build relationships at scale and trust at scale, which is again the ultimate goal of a broker is to build relationships. There's AI implementation of that, I think, turns a single broker into
Yeah.
10 brokers or
Yeah.
100 brokers, which is super interesting to me,
Yep.
especially from somewhere perspective. Because then you're
One of the most
also,
fascinating things that I didn't see happening at Somewhere is that we have a kind of a AI training module where if you
mm,
just hire somebody, if you hire an executive assistant, a salesperson, whatever, you have the option to put them through a 10-day training, and a lot of that's AI. How to use the right AI tools, how to get the tech stack ready, and the demand for that after hire has skyrocketed. So yeah, is AI gonna replace a bunch of employees? I mean, maybe, you tell me, I'm following very closely, but I think before that, it'll make employees more efficient. And
yeah,
it's the lawnmower. When the lawnmower came around, they said lawn care companies were gonna go out of business. It's not true. More and more people are paying for their lawn to get cut than ever, and the lawn mowing companies are using the lawnmowers.
I love like roofing companies, plumbing companies. I think those service-based businesses, they're run by fantastic people, but fantastic people who've built the business 40 years ago.
Mhm,
And they're maybe not open or thinking about what using some of these tools can do from an efficiency and actual growth perspective.
mhm.
So the person who can crack the service-based businesses where an AI can't fix your, pipes in your plumbing,
Yep.
right? I think that's going to be like an incredible business if you can
Yeah.
whoever figures that out.
Yeah, I the most visited page on my website at Sweaty Startup is a list of 200 plus business ideas just like this, like plumbing, move something, clean something, repair something, build something is basically what this list is. It's at sweatystartup.com/ideas if people want to look at it while we're talking.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about this stuff is that people think like they have this plan of just, hey, I'm gonna buy a business, a sweaty startup. I'm gonna buy a business or I'm gonna start a
Mhm.
business and I'm just gonna use digital marketing and I'm gonna use AI tools and I'm gonna use all the things that the old operator doesn't use. And let me just warn folks that these old boomers know how to run businesses a little better than you think.
They are savages, man. They are savages. They grew up in a different era, and they will take your lunch money, man. It's very hard to beat someone who's done something for a very long time. If you can expect yourself to come in and beat someone who has spent their life trying to be really good at something,
And if
like,
they built
you
an
got a rude
amazing
awakening.
business with a fax machine, imagine how good at sales, relationship management, leadership, communication. Imagine how good they are as an operator in other areas.
100%, 100%. Okay, let's get into social media a little bit because that's something that I've dabbled in, and it's been fantastic in terms of opportunities, but also it's fucking hard, man. So, can you walk me through, like, your social media machine from ideation to the writing schedule to the platforms? Like, what's the workflow look like for you?
So I make pretty significant investments of about 300 grand a year in my team. I have a head of content, I have 2 audio video editors, I have and then 2 executive assistants. So my team is 6 people. Um, the and also social media doesn't work like it worked 3 years ago. In 2021, 2022, I could make a tweet and it would get hundreds of thousands of impressions and I would get 3 to 4,000 new followers. I haven't added 3,000 followers in a month in over a year, and I'm making better content than ever and trying harder on it than I ever have. It's harder to sell something, it's harder to promote yourself, it's harder to get people to sign up for your email newsletters. So, yeah, that's maybe not what folks wanna hear listening to this, but social media, especially X, is not the same as it was in 2021.
What does the current workflow look like for you now?
I have a bank of 10,000 tweets, and my team has them sorted by likes and impressions. So we have the last 5 years worth of data and what struck a chord with people sorted in order of popularity. And we recycle because Twitter's moving. Like it's a new crowd gets on Twitter and gets into Nick Huber every
Mhm.
couple months. So I'm not, a billboard. It's a parade, right? I have to keep repeating myself and my message and who I am and what I do. So that's what me and my team do. We recycle a lot of the content that is core to my message, and I also write new stuff and tweet when I can and when I want to, but for the most part, if I passed away today or tomorrow, my Twitter would never stop.
Wow, that's fucking sick. If you had to start from 0 today, right? What do you think you would do to grow a social following?
I would follow what Chris Corner's doing and uh, Hermosi and Cody, and I'd make short form video.
Mm,
It's the only way to grow, but I don't like it and I'm not good at it, so it's not a game I'm gonna play.
yeah, I think that's very insightful. You seem to have a lot of self-awareness, which is something that I think people should get better at and get better at understanding themselves because if you don't like something, if you're not good at it, like, what the fuck? Don't try to be someone you're not, which you talk a lot about, weaknesses versus strengths and leaning into that. So how do you think about strengths versus
Well, I think
weaknesses and
I think I'll speak out of both sides of my mouth again, and I'll give conflicting information.
okay.
What you just said is true. If you're not good at something and it sucks for you, don't do it. But and on the other side of it, like you need to be totally unemotional about what you're doing, and you're following the path of least resistance and trying to accomplish what you want to accomplish, regardless of what it is you're actually doing. Taylor, I bet you are not like designing your dream life, and it's like, oh, I'm going to start by cold calling for 5 years of my life. No, that's hell,
Yeah.
right? But you did it because to accomplish goals that you had personally. So yeah, I think you forget about what you want to be doing and what you're good at, and you go do what go play where the opportunity is. So luckily, I already have my following. I have my book now out. I have these things that are happening. I love media. I love teaching, but I'm running too many companies to have a video crew follow me around and make and edit reels.
Yeah. What's one management move that basically tells you if something's gonna sink or scale?
I think when somebody makes a very critical decision at your company without you,
Mhm.
the first deal, I'm sure you remember your first deal at your brokerage that closed without you talking to either party. You didn't talk to the buyer or the seller. I'm sure you remember that, and that's when you're like, holy cow, I just made 5 grand, 10 grand, 20 grand, 100 grand, $500,000, and I didn't do anything. I had that similar experience in 2021 in the real estate business, where I didn't find the deal. I didn't talk to the seller. I didn't make the OM. I didn't raise the money. All I did was look at the spreadsheet and give the thumbs up on whether or not we should buy it. And then my team did everything else. And that felt good.
Mm-hmm. It does feel pretty good, right? So you're like,
Good.
that's the business I want to be in.
It's really,
It's
really hard. Like, you delegate writing an OM, you delegate talking to your most high value investors, you delegate talking to KeyBank, your number one lender. Like, you're not going to do any of that stuff. There's balance here. You should definitely hold some of the most important tasks close. But if you have people who are amazing, which I am lucky to have a couple people who are unbelievable on my real estate team, you just keep giving them more and more until they prove they can't do it.
How do you hire A players? How do you find and hire A players?
When you figure that out, let me know. There's also a huge part of the Sweaty Startup book that's dedicated around hiring and management. And there are ways, absolutely, to go hunt for talent. The best way to go find people who are doing their job at a very high level now. Like, if I were in your shoes, I would be chasing the highest producing brokers, because literally there's a scoreboard and it's how much revenue they've generated. And it's very clear in your business who's an A player and who's not. In many other positions, it's not as simple to figure out who the A players are. But I do have a pretty important piece of advice, and that is around keeping A players. There's two things that A players absolutely hate. And that's a boss or an owner of a company that makes slow decisions and doesn't make anything happen. Meaning, they bring problems to the boss and say, hey, here's my problem. Here's how I want to solve it. These are the things I want to do. And the manager or the owner talks a big game. Hey, okay, this is amazing. We're going to do all this stuff. And then absolutely nothing happens. That is hell for a high performer. And the second thing is being surrounded by low performers. If you do not fire your poor performers, which is hard, by the way. I had to get on a call this morning and let somebody go. Very, very, very difficult. It never is not difficult. I've done it hundreds of times. If you refuse to do it for the betterment of the company, and you surround your A players with C players, you're going to watch your A players walk away. So you have two choices. You can fire your C players, or you can watch your A players walk away. Which one do you want to do? But the competence of your organization falls or rises to the level that you tolerate. So if you tolerate C players and you let people hide who are low performers, and you let people make the same mistakes over and over again, and you let people be lazy, and you let all of it slide, the culture of your entire company will fall to that. Period. There's no way around it. If you tolerate it, your entire company will become it, because your A players are going to be gone, and you're going to foster an environment where low performers can hide. So if you do not let your low performers go, you're going to watch your A players walk away, and your entire organization is going to become a C-level organization.
I think we got a clip for your team. I think that was that was pretty damn good, man. It's fucking speak the truth. That is it's very important.
So I would say my piece of advice for anyone listening is, if you're a business owner and you have an employee who just can't seem to get it, and you always have, every time they make a mistake, you're like, damn, maybe with a little bit more training, they would do better. Maybe this is on me. Maybe I'm not setting them up for success, but then they make another mistake. Then something else happens. Fire that person now. Get off of this podcast, shut your phone, and set up the termination of this person right away, as soon as possible. Because 2 or 3 days later, you're going to wish you had done it 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Offer them a great severance, help them in the next phase of life. I'm not telling you to be heartless. But if you put up with incompetence, people don't change, man. Like, they do. They very, very rarely do. 1 in 7 or 8 employees with the right training, the right coaching, the right performance improvement plan will turn from a B player to an A player, or a C player to a B player. But the other 7 out of 8 times, they're not going to. So me, as a business owner, how can I afford to take those odds when, on average, people do not change? So for me, as a business owner, people are going to show me who they are. My job is to believe them, not to change them. And as a business owner and as an entrepreneur who has confidence, who has optimism, we always think we can change people. Dave Ramsey has this great quote where he's talking to somebody on the phone, and she's like, Dave, I'm just having problems with my husband. He spends all of our money. He sits on the couch drinking beer every Sunday, all Sunday. He's got terrible spending habits. We can't build wealth. He doesn't work hard. He has no side hustles. He has no ambition. And Dave says, was he like that before he got married? Well, yeah. Did he watch football before he got married? Yeah. Did he drink beer before he got married? Yeah. Did he spend on stupid things before he got married? Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, you married a pit bull and you want a golden doodle. People don't change.
Yeah.
People don't change.
Yeah.
The same exact thing applies to employees. If you try to change them, you will end up frustrated, stressed, and broke. It is the unfortunate truth.
So then what's the KPI that keeps you up at night the most?
Oh, I mean, shit. There's always stress. There's always people problems. That's why they pay. That's why they pay us the big bucks, right? Is that when the phone rings, when my phone rings, it's very rarely good news. A customer saying, "Oh, Nick, it's just amazing," and or an employee saying, "You know what, Nick, I just want to thank you for being my boss. I'm so happy with everything." That doesn't happen. They want more money. They have a problem. They want a refund. So there's constant stress in business. I can't really point to one thing, but
Mhm.
I think just generally right now, I'm pretty bearish on the economy for the first time in a while. I've been pretty optimistic that it's going
Mhm.
to turn around, and the tariffs and things like that have me a little bit spooked.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, has that directly affected the way that you guys approach the business?
Not bolt storage, but somewheres like we had a bunch of clients cancel at the finish line over the last 3 months or 3 weeks since all the tariffs were announced. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's definitely just a weird feeling of uncertainty, and uncertainty never helps real estate. It never helps hiring. It never helps some of these decisions around business planning because people wait for certainty to do things like that.
What's the biggest skill that you're trying to improve right now? Or what's one thing that you're constantly, because you seem like someone who is constantly learning and trying to improve themselves. Like what's that next skill that you want to get better at?
Yeah, building management teams is really really hard. A company that can do 2 or 300 grand a month of revenue. You can have a lot broken into business and still do that. Hell, even 1 million a month of revenue. You can have bad processes. You can have problems. But taking a company from a couple hundred grand a month to 1 million a month of revenue, then trying to go to 2 and 3 million a month of revenue requires totally new structures and how businesses are set up to get there without everything breaking. So I bought somewhere.com when it was at $1 million a month of revenue, and setting that business up to go to 2, 3, 4 million a month of revenue required a lot of new skills of me that I've been having a blast doing, but it's it's something I need to improve.
Do you think people should understand and set up the foundation for a good business before going and just breaking shit and figuring out what works? Or like,
No,
what is
no,
the
because
foundational?
it's very expensive to build a business to scale. Hiring a head of rev ops, hiring, not only head of sales, but a couple sales managers under them. You're looking at, um, you know, a lot of different tools and automations that need to be built to grow a company, how things are structured. So I love building things that need to be rebuilt a year later. I think it's part of business, and it's part of why things are fun.
It's the alpha, right?
So I
What is
sprint full speed ahead, drive as much revenue as you possibly can, and build your business based around that revenue is always my goal.
what do you think are the fundamentals that when someone should be building a business, like what are the foundation? What's the cornerstone they should have in
Yeah,
place?
first thing you need to do before you make any management hires is you need to be making at least 20 grand a month of profit to you. And then you can start to build a management team. And then when you're at 50 grand a month of profit, you can layer in more management and, different types of marketing. And then it's just way easier to build a business that scales when you have cash coming in the door. And
Mm.
nobody talks about how hard it is to build a business when you're broke. So get the damn cash coming in the door. Step one. Step one. That's exhibit A.
How would you go from 0 to 20K?
Oh, I do a lot of work myself. I trade time for money. That's
Yeah.
what you did to build your business.
Sales? Yeah. I mean, phone calls,
Yeah.
right?
I
Calling.
leased storage units. I moved boxes. So yeah, man. Like do the work.
Get gritty,
Yep.
get fucking dirty. I love that shit. I want to talk about some of these tweets and just before we wrap up, because I know we're coming up on it. Your most, I think one of the most popular tweets was, This kid saved up all week for an ice cream. He spent $5. He dropped it after the 5th lick, and I didn't buy him another one. Life is hard. He took it well. That was the funniest fucking tweet. The reactions on that are like, I'm just comical. Like, give me the backstory on that and tell me what ended up happening, the story behind it.
Yeah. So to put in perspective, that tweet probably got 500 million impressions.
Oh my god.
It got 20 million impressions on Twitter. It got 240 million impressions on an Instagram meme account. It got a ton on Reddit. It was all over the place. I got 150 death threats. My wife's friends were asking her if I was crazy, if I was cruel. My parents' friends were reaching out to my parents because everybody saw it. And it took a certain level of IQ to realize that it wasn't true, I guess. And a lot of people are below that threshold of IQ. Um, but no, it didn't. It didn't happen. Of course, I would have gotten my kid a new ice cream cone if he dropped it.
So the is part of your like that clearly you had a strategy behind that, right? You do I mean, okay, maybe you didn't have a strategy, but you seem to me as you kind of like playing the heel a little bit.
Oh, I
Is
I have a weird sense of humor. Is the only way to explain that. That does not
yeah.
advance my brand. It does not make my life better. I think it's freaking hilarious that people can be doing whatever they want to do, and a guy sitting on a toilet writing 240 characters can make them visibly and physically upset. I think that's hilarious. Maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm just a pick, but I think it's freaking hilarious that people cannot handle these joke tweets on the internet. So, but
Mhm.
I think it's freaking funny, man, and that's who I am. I have a weird sense of humor. I love goofing off. So yeah, it's but no, that was not a positive experience when it went totally viral.
I can only imagine. I mean, do you think about um how to grow your social to grow the businesses versus just growing the followers, or are they one and the same?
Um, again, it's just so hard to get followers. I don't know how to do it now. Um, seriously, like I'll pull up my social blade here just to tell you how many followers I've
Yeah.
gained. Um, but it's been not.
I mean, me growing a podcast, which I know you've been doing for a long time, is fucking hard.
Yeah, it's even harder. It's even harder. Yeah, let's see. So I
My YouTube is 150 in the last 30 days. That's crazy.
let me see. Yeah, I can't figure it out because they just changed the handle from X to or from Twitter to X, so I can't locate it. I haven't looked in a
Oh,
long time. But let's say
okay.
I've added maybe 2,000 followers in the last month. I
Yeah.
used to add that in a day. So and back to when I said I got 150 death threats, it was literally just stupid DMs saying you're a terrible person, you should die. So I guess that's
Yeah.
not a technical death threat. It wasn't like people were coming to my house,
Mhm.
but it very much upset everybody.
Let me ask you too, because this is something that I struggle with, which you seem to have figured out. How do you balance work and family? Because for me, I don't have a family yet. I'm single. Work is my life at this point. 28 years old, so I got some time. I know you say get married early and do that whole thing. It made you better in business, but how do
I
you?
had my first kid when I was 27, and I still feel like I'm a little bit behind the 8 ball, so you need to if I could spend some time trying to convince you to hustle up and change the mindset, and it's not about, "Oh, I just haven't met the right person." It's literally going into your day with a mindset of, "Hey, I'm gonna do the things required to, like, make this next step as a human." But
Hmm.
because it takes shit moves slow, man. You gotta get to know somebody. You gotta see how they react under pressure. You gotta see if their morals are on your side. You gotta get to know their family and what they're doing. Then you gotta get married. Then you gotta try for a baby, which they make you think in junior high it's gonna you get pregnant if you look at a girl the wrong way, and that's not the case at all. So, yeah, like, if you move full speed ahead, you're gonna have your first kid's gonna be born when you're 32.
Jeez, yeah, that's pretty crazy to think about. I mean, how do you balance growing a business and your family? Is there an order of family first, business
I
is
started
second?
working
Like,
on the important shit, and I got 10 times more effective as an operator and a business person when I had kids. I got more motivated and more ambitious than ever. I got better at time management. I got more disciplined. Um, I don't know anything about your life and your discipline in other areas. It seems like you have that dialed, but it was kind of working on the right things for me, the very high leverage things. And it's amazing when you pull yourself out of the weeds of a business and you look at things a different way, you can actually be more impactful if you don't
it's
use
like Parkinson's law, right?
that because it was a crutch. Like how to best explain the storage squad? We had 25 locations,
Mhm.
actually 14 locations, 25 major colleges. I could not be in every one at one time. I physically couldn't because it was all during finals week. There was no way I could be in State College, Pennsylvania, and Champaign, Illinois on the same day. So I had no choice but to sit on my computer and delegate everything. A lot of business owners will get in the weeds, working deals, doing all these things that, yes, it makes them more money, but it does not build their business in the long term the right way. So there's a part of this book, it's in like the third part 3 of like spending time on the important but not urgent things. The urgent shit is like doing another deal and make another 100 grand. The important things are like going to find a broker who's going to do, you know, 60, 70 million a year of transaction volume.
Mhm.
And when I had my first kid, and now that I have a family, I'm not gonna miss the soccer game. I'm not gonna miss, being really close to my wife for 4 weeks after she has a baby. I'm not gonna miss, um, doing the things that are important. So therefore, I have to just very, very, very wisely prioritize what I do spend my time on, and it's made me a lot better at it.
So you fast forward 30 years, Nick, your kids are asked, what did your dad actually do? What would you love them to answer?
It's hilarious because my 7-year-old is getting really smart, and I'm talking to him all the time, and I was like, I'm starting to teach him about money, and I said, "What does your dad
Uh,
do for money? What do I do for money?" He goes, or I said, like, "Where does money come from first?" He goes, "Your wallet." And I was like, "Okay, but what does dad do to put money in his wallet?" It's like, "Well, you work on your computer." It's like, "Okay, but what am I doing?" And he had absolutely no idea what I do. And I realized that explaining what I do is actually really, really hard to a 7-year-old. Well,
Mhm.
there's these things called businesses, and there's people that work for them, and they do things for people, and they get paid, but at the end of the day, there's a little bit left over for the person who owns the business. It's very hard to explain. So I just
Mhm.
told him instead that I own storage units, and they're like little garage doors that people put their stuff in.
Hopefully he's thankful for that. When he can grow, he'll be like, the Rockefeller, where he takes, your storage business and if he wants to, obviously, and builds it into the incredible
I would love
number one
I would
storage
love for my I
operator.
would love for my sons and daughters to get involved in my business. I'm not gonna force them to, but I think
Yeah.
I want them to remember me as somebody who built them up and made them confident instead of drug them down. I had a lot of friends with a lot of potential in high school and college whose parents would get in the car after a basketball game and talk about how they didn't hustle for that ball and how they were lazy over here, and I can't believe you missed that layup and you suck at this, and just tear them down. My dad never did that. Built me up. I'm gonna build them up. I'm gonna make them think that they can do anything. I'm gonna teach them how to struggle with grace so that they can start to make decisions and start to build the muscle of stress and and because a lot of people just want to put their kids in a bubble and protect them from all pain. And that's a very unhealthy thing for anybody who's going to go out in the real world because no matter how well off you are, the world is hard. So I'm going to teach them how to struggle with grace. And then the most important thing is I'm going to show my sons and my daughters what it's like to be in a very committed relationship with my wife. And I'm going to hopefully raise a daughter that like knows how she deserves to be treated because of the way I treated her mom. Because there's so many women who are so insecure and they don't know how to get out of bad relationships and they let themselves be walked all over and they let themselves get abused by these loser guys. It's almost all because they were never modeled a healthy relationship. So one of the most important
Amen.
things I can do as a dad is to show commitment and love to their mom.
Amen, brother. Last question before we wrap up, because I know I'm actually joining a Zoom call you're going to be on in about an hour. Finish this sentence for every investor, builder, person listening to this. If you aren't willing to blank, you have no business calling yourself an entrepreneur.
Sell and deal with stress and do the hard stuff and manage expectations and delegate and hire and solve problems all the time. There's a lot that goes into this, and they're varying levels of importance. But I talk about them all, and not to just shamelessly plug the book, but
Plug the book, man. It's a great book.
Sweaty Startup book, which there's a link down below, is literally how I think about operating companies. It's how I think about picking opportunities. It's got a chapter on sales. It's got a chapter on hiring. It's got a chapter on management. It's got a chapter on delegation. The hard stuff, because you don't get a competitive advantage in business by picking up an idea. You get an advantage in business by out operating and out executing the other people in that business. And that's what this book is about. It's not about changing the world with a big idea. It's about doing the common things uncommonly well and out executing everybody.
Nick Huber, everyone. Thank you for being here, brother.
Thanks for having me, Taylor.